We live in an era in which people are denounced as racist not because they believe certain things about other races, but because they don't believe certain things about particular political policies. Canada is a country in which any deviation from the One Permissible Opinion on policies that are deeply grounded in ideology like multiculturalism and the fetishization of diversity is strictly forbidden. It's important that a crucial distinction be made at this point between multiculturalism and multi-ethnic. Multi-ethnic, as the term suggests, is simply a country with a population that includes people from a variety of ethnic backgrounds. Multiculturalism, on the other hand, is a political policy. It's a policy based on theories about social organization generated by ideology. Ideology favored by the elites on the political left who, in the second half of the 20th century, began imposing these policies on Western countries, starting, by the way, with Canada under Justin Trudeau's father Pierre, with the explicit intention of restructuring society to mirror their own ideological, some would say utopian, beliefs.
For me, this beautiful, rich, and energetic country of ours can become a model of the just society, and peoples of many cultures will live in harmony. C'est ça, le Canada.
Of course, there's a fundamental presupposition at the heart of multiculturalism that these self-proclaimed visionaries failed to make explicit as they set out remaking society in their own superior image. It's that the citizens of the host country should not privilege, prefer, cherish, value, favor, or seek to protect their own culture over that of any foreign cultures imported into the country via mass immigration. In fact, the people of the host country must welcome their displacement as the dominant culture in their own homeland. Not only that, they must see it as desirable to have their culture diminished and relegated to simply one in a field of multiple cultures existing side by side within the boundaries of the state. And the preferred method used and encouraged by the ruling class to discourage and suppress doubt, dissent, or scrutiny of the wisdom of any of this was to label anything less than unqualified enthusiasm for their policies as a moral failing. These policies were designated to be only good. There were no downsides. Therefore, any degree of opposition could only mean that there was something wrong with you. Your humanity was corrupt. You were unenlightened, not one of us, not one of the good people. You must be a racist. You must be a xenophobe. It should be self-evident to all thinking people that there are no political policies or ideological convictions that produce only positive or desirable results, or that should be deemed sacrosanct and outside of the realm of critical scrutiny or criticism. And yet Canada is a country in which there is essentially no mainstream opposition to these ideologically leftist, postmodern presuppositions which are treated by almost the entirety of the political and media class as axiomatic and therefore beyond questioning. Let me emphasize that point. What is called conservative or even right-wing in the mainstream political and media landscape in Canada, with very few exceptions, treats the conceptions of multiculturalism, mass immigration, diversity, and demographic change generated by left-wing, postmodern ideology as absolute truths for which no doubt, questioning, or criticism should be tolerated. The political and media elites in Canada literally deem it to be un-Canadian to disagree with the status quo officially sanctioned opinion on these matters. On the rare occasion that a public figure goes against the herd and expresses a perspective even mildly out of step with the consensus, he or she is swiftly pounced upon by an endless stream of politicians and pundits eager to denounce the heretic, proclaim their own moral superiority, and affirm their allegiance to the established dogma. An example of these rarefied free thinkers in the land of maple syrup and groupthink is Maxime Bernier. Maxime is a member of parliament from Quebec who came within a hair's breadth of winning the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada last year, but was narrowly beaten out of the top job by this guy, Andrew Scheer. When Scheer assumed the leadership of the party, he included Bernier in his caucus, which is a choice he may be regretting, seeing as Bernier has a habit of expressing views which reflect pretty standard conservative principles. Principles which a Conservative Party of Canada, desperate to be seen as just another version of Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party, minus Justin, is terrified of being associated with. Well, the party brass must have had something like a collective stroke this month, when in a short series of eloquent and concise tweets, Bernier transgressed the ultimate Canadian taboo. He criticized official multiculturalism and the cult of diversity.
A senior Conservative MP is facing nearly universal criticism for his stance on diversity.
You know, he's an individual member of Parliament. He doesn't speak for the party.
And he's embarrassed every Conservative in the country.
Ontario is a welcoming society. It has been built by its diversity. I reject what he said.
Again, I mean, how many times the Conservatives going to go to this well? There's no competition for the votes of bigots in this country. If the Conservatives want to round them up and take them, they can have them.
We'll look at the politics of division as a way of drawing political advantage.
As we've said, the preferred method for suppressing independent thought, dissent, or critical scrutiny of the received wisdom is to characterize any nonconformity as a symptom of moral inferiority. It is an old and contemptible tactic. None of these people are showing how or why what Bernier said is wrong. They're simply announcing that they're better people than him. That's because their outrage is not from knowing that what he said is wrong or incorrect. They are outraged because he dared to say it. And what did he say? Well, let's have a quick look at the tweets. Trudeau keeps pushing his "diversity is our strength" slogan. Yes, Canada is a huge and diverse country. This diversity is part of us and should be celebrated. But where do we draw the line? Ethnic, religious, linguistic, sexual, and other minorities were unjustly repressed in the past. We've done a lot to redress those injustices and give everyone equal rights. Canada is today one of the countries where people have the most freedom to express their identity. But why should we promote ever more diversity? If anything and everything is Canadian, does being Canadian mean something? Shouldn't we emphasize our cultural traditions, what we have built and have in common, what makes us different from other cultures and societies? Having people live among us who reject basic Western values such as freedom, equality, tolerance, and openness doesn't make us strong. People who refuse to integrate into our society and want to live apart in their ghetto don't make our society strong. Trudeau's extreme multiculturalism and cult of diversity will divide us into little tribes that have less and less in common, apart from their dependence on government in Ottawa. These tribes become political clienteles to be bought with taxpayers' dollars and special privileges. Cultural balkanization brings distrust, social conflict, and potentially violence, as we are seeing everywhere. It's time we reverse this trend before the situation gets worse. More diversity will not be our strength. It will destroy what has made us such a great country. There you have it. That's the assault on pluralism and all that is decent and true that the mainstream media is assuring Canadians has set their entire country on edge. Not exactly Kristallnacht, is it? Nowhere other than the sanitized intellectual landscape of the Canadian chattering classes could this stuff be considered radical or outrageous. Certainly not by the standards of open discussion and debate about these subjects that is common in other countries like the UK, Australia, or the United States. Sadly, only in the Orwellian parallel universe inhabited by the Canadian political and media elite could someone who declares diversity is part of us and should be celebrated be condemned for rejecting diversity. Only in their upside-down bizarro world could someone who laments that ethnic, religious, linguistic, and sexual minorities were unjustly repressed and who celebrates the redress of those injustices be denounced as a bigot. And only a small class of intellectually timid, mediocre, unimaginative elites who demand conformity to their ideology of relativism would demonize a fellow Canadian for saying that freedom, equality, tolerance, and openness are values intrinsic to Canadian society, or that those values are worthy of being cherished and defended, or that only those who share those values should be welcome to join us. The fact that anyone can be publicly shamed and condemned for saying any of that is exactly what Bernier means by extreme multiculturalism or too much diversity. When a national politician can't even declare his commitment to the virtues and values of his own country without being shouted down as a bigot, something has gone seriously wrong. This policy was sold to us as bringing about the just society, with everyone living in harmony. What we ended up with is groupthink, thought crime, and control. Maxime is right. A serious reconsideration of this political policy and the ideology behind it is long overdue.
This is going to Getugly.
Never okay.